This is the first testing section in which I will be testing the account creation segment on the register screen. If we go onto the data in the account table, you can see there is one account created under an automated account ID under the username test. If we run the application and go to the sign up screen or the register screen, and we run the first test, which is the user selects the back button and the user should be taken to the login screen. That is a success. Move back onto the register screen. Moving on to test 2. User enters no information to the username or password fields, and the corresponding error message should display. That is correct. That is a success. If we enter a valid username, it remains that is a success, and if we enter a valid password but no username, that is a success. Test 2 is successful. Moving on to test 3, the user enters spaces into the username and password field and clicks the sign up button. The corresponding error message should occur. If we enter a space into the username field, that is a success. If we enter a space into the password field, that is a success, and if we enter spaces into both username and password fields, it remains that is a success. Moving on to test 4. User enters information under 3 or over 15 characters into either username or password field, and the corresponding error message should occur. If we enter 2 characters into the username field and a valid password, the correct error message occurs. That is a success. If we enter too many characters into the username field, the correct error message occurs. If we enter a valid username and 2 characters into the password field, the correct error message occurs. If we enter too many characters into the password field and a valid username, the correct error message occurs. That test is a success. Moving on to test 5. User enters a username which is already stored into the username field and clicks the sign up button. As you can see, an account has already been created under the username test. Therefore, the username test is already taken. If we enter a valid username while trying to sign up with the username test, a valid password while trying to sign up with the username test, username taken displays. Therefore, test 5 is a success. Moving on to test 6. User ticks or unticks a checkbox labeled show with the password entered. When it is ticked, the password should show, and when it is unticked, it should be hidden. Therefore, that is a success. Moving on to test 7. User enters information into the username and password fields which is suitable for the system and clicks the sign up button. Therefore, if we enter a username of tester and a valid username, this should be signed up and the user should be taken to the login screen. That is a success. Now, if we go on to the account table in the database and refresh it, the account has been created with an automated account ID. Moving on to test 8, the account is created, the password inserted should be hashed, which it clearly is, and therefore test 8 is also a success. This is the second section of testing in which we will be testing the login screen. To begin, I'd like to show you the account table stored in the database. This is the account that we created in the first testing video, and this is the account we will be using to test the login screen. Now, if we run the application, the first test states that the user enters no information into the username and password fields, and the incorrect username error message should occur, which is a success. Moving on to test 2, user enters incorrect information into the username and or password field. So if we enter the correct username, incorrect password should occur, and if we enter gibberish, incorrect password should remain. If we enter an incorrect username and no password, incorrect username should occur, and the correct password, incorrect username should still occur. Therefore, test 2 is a success. Moving on to test 3, user enters password which is in case the same as the password stored in the correct username. As you can see in and the correct username, sorry. As you can see in the first section, the password we created was test as shown. So if we capitalize it differently, incorrect password, which is a success, testing it again is a success. Therefore, test 3 is a success. Moving on to test 4, user ticks or unticks checkbox labeled show, and the password should be shown if ticked. As you can see, that is a success, and when it's unticked, it is hidden. Therefore, test 4 is a success. Moving on to test 5, user clicks the exit button. The program should be terminated, which is a success. Moving on to test 6, user clicks the sign up button, and the user should be taken to the register screen. As you can see, is a success. Moving on to test 7, user enters correct information of an account which exists in the system and clicks login. As you can see, as the password is hashed, which is test, and the username is tester, if we enter this information, we should be successfully logged on to the system, which is a success. Moving on to test 8, user enters correct characters of the username but cased differently and the correct password. This test is showing that the username shouldn't be case sensitive. So if we enter the correct password here, as you can see, and we case the username differently, we are still logged in. Therefore the username is not case sensitive and test 8 is a success. Moving on to the third section of testing, in which I'll be testing the main menu screen. The first test states that when the main menu screen is initially displayed, the music should automatically start playing and the mute music checkbox should be unticked. If we log on, you can see that is a success. Now the second test states that when I tick this checkbox, the music should stop playing, which is a success. Moving on to test 3, a non-admin user logs on and the main menu is displayed. As you can see, this account is a non-admin. The admin button has not been displayed and therefore test 3 is a success. Moving on to test 4, user clicks on the games button and should be taken to the game selection screen. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 5, the user clicks the quiz button and should be taken to the topics screen. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 6, the user clicks the leaderboards button and should be taken to the leaderboards screen. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 8, the user clicks on the account button and should be taken to the account screen. As you can see, that is a success. And moving on to test 8, the user clicks on the help button and should be taken to the help screen. As you can see, that is a success. Now moving on to test 9, the user clicks on the formulas button and a formula pop-up panel should appear, or pop-up frame, and the main frame should be disabled. As you can see, main frame is disabled and that is a success. Moving on to test 10, the user clicks on the exit button and the program should be terminated, which is a success. Now moving on to test 11, which an admin user logs in. If we make this account that we were using in admin, and now I run the program again and log in, the admin button should appear. As you can see, that is a success, and therefore test 11 is a success. Moving on to test 12, the admin user clicks on the admin button and should be taken to the admin screen. As you can see, is a success. Moving on to the fourth section of testing, in which I'll be testing the formulas pop-up frame. If I open the formulas pop-up frame here, test 1 states that when the user clicks on the topic button, the panel on the pop-up frame to change from the formula selection panel to the formulas panel. If I test this for each topic here, you can see that test 1 is a success. Now moving on to test 2, when the panel on frame changes to the formulas panel, all of the equations for that selected topic should be displayed in a table. If I open all of the equations stored in the system, or formulas stored in the system, you can see that when I click on mechanics, all of these formulas have been displayed in the table correctly. Same with electric circuits, same with materials, and same with waves. Therefore test 2 is a success. Moving on to test 3, when the user clicks on the back button on the formula panel, the panel on the pop-up frame should change from the formula panel to the formula selection panel. If I test this for each topic, back, 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 and back, you can see that test 3 is also a success. Moving on to the fifth section of testing, which is testing the game selection screen. The first test states that when the user clicks on the snake button, they should be taken to the topic screen. As you can see, is a success. The second test states that when the user clicks on the projectiles button, they are taken to the topic screen. As you can see, is a success. And the third test states that when the user clicks on the back button, they will be taken to the main menu with the music checkbox ticked the same way as it was when they came in. As you can see, it was ticked as I came in, and if I untick it, it remains unticked. Therefore test 3 is a success. Moving on to the sixth section of testing, in which I'll be testing the topic screen. The first test states that when the user clicks on the mechanics button, the panel on frame should change from the topic screen to either the quiz screen or the live game screen. If I first do this through snake, as you can see, that is a success. If I do it through projectiles, that is a success, and if I do it through the quiz, that is a success. And therefore test 1 is a success. Test 2 states that the same thing should occur with the electric circuits button. If I do this through snake, you can see that is a success. If I do this through projectiles, you can see that is a success, and if I do this through the quiz, you can see that is a success. Now moving on to test 3, the same thing should occur when the materials button is clicked. If I do it through snake, as you can see, that is a success. Do it through projectiles, as you can see, that is a success, and do it through quiz, as you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 4, the same thing should occur when the user clicks on the waves button. Through snake, that is a success. Through projectiles, that is a success, and through quiz, that is a success. Moving on to test 5, when the user clicks on the back button, they should either be taken to the main menu screen or the game selection screen. If we do it through the games, the topic screen, when we press back, we should be taken to the game selection screen. That is a success. If we do it through the topic screen from the main menu, if we press back, we should be taken to the main menu screen. That is a success. Therefore, test 5 is a success. Now moving on to the 7th section of testing, which is the live game screen testing. Before we move on to the testing, I'd like to show you that in the database, in the game results table, there is currently no record stored. Therefore, the high score of every account in every game is 0. Okay, so moving on to the first test. When the live game screen is initially displayed, we will start with Snake. Statistics about the game should be displayed, which is a success. Moving on to test 2, the user clicks on the back button, the panel should change to the topic screen, which is a success. And moving on to test 3, when the user clicks the start button, the back button, the start button should disappear, the game should appear, and an equation should appear with some extra statistics as well, which is a success. Moving on to test 4, during the game, the timer should increment each second, which is a success. Now moving on to test 5, a random equation should be displayed with a missing letter from the topic selected. As you can see up here, that is a success. Now moving on to test 6, a letter is selected as an answer. Initially, we will select a correct letter to show you the testing for when a correct answer is selected, which should increment the score by 5. A new equation should appear with a new letter missing, and new letters should appear on the game. In this case, the correct answer is I, so if we select that, it is a success. The score has been incremented by 5, a new equation has been set, and letters have been set. Now if we select on the same test 6, an incorrect answer for the snake game should end and a finish button should appear. So if we just select .p here, that is a success, as you can see. Now as you can see, in this game we achieved a score of 5, and therefore the record in the game results table should be updated and give this account username tester a high score of 5 in the Snake electric circuits. So therefore, if we select finish, it should be taken back to the main menu. If we go onto the game results table, there is a new record of the account ID 2, which I can show you is the tester account here, account ID 2, with an updated game score of 5 in the electric circuits Snake game ID, which is a success. Now moving on to unique Snake game tests. When the user clicks an arrow key, the snake should move in that direction, which is a success. As you can see, I'm clicking the corresponding arrow keys to its direction and it is changing successfully. So test 12 is a success. Test 11 states that if the user clicks an arrow key in the opposite direction to which the snake is traveling, the snake should not change direction as it cannot turn in on itself. So if I test that now, I'm clicking left. Now if I go up, I'm clicking down. If I click left, I'm clicking right. And if I click down, I'm clicking up, and it is not changing direction. So test 13 is a success. Test 14 states that if the snake hits a wall, the game should end. So if we just hit the right hand wall here, the game should end. So test 14 is a success. Now we are moving up to time of 120 seconds here, which will allow us to test 7. When the timer hits 120 seconds, the game should end, which as you can see is a success. Now when the game ends, the game process should be terminated, as has happened, and a finish button should appear, which as you can see is a success. Now when the user clicks on a finish button, the panel on frame should change from the live game screen to the main menu. And also, as I have not achieved a high score in this game, as I have achieved a high score of 0, the record for this account in the game results table should not be updated, which is test 10, or test 11, sorry. So test 9 there is a success. We've been taken back to the main menu and just showing you this is the same account tester. Now if we go to the game results table and refresh it, it has not been updated as we have not achieved a high score in that game. Therefore test 11 is a success. Carrying on with the 7th section of testing, in which we will be testing the live game screen for the Projectiles game. Before we move on to the testing, I'd like to show the game results table. The only record currently stored in the game results table is for the Snake game, which we previously did in the testing. Therefore no high scores are currently stored for the Projectiles game. Moving on to test 1, where when the live game screen is initially displayed, statistics should be displayed about the game selected. Therefore if we select the Projectiles game and a materials topic as the example topic, you can see that this test is successful. Moving on to test 2, the user clicks on the back button, and the topic screen should be selected when clicked. As you can see, is a success. Moving on to the unique projectile game tests, when the user clicks on the ball size help button, a pop-up frame should appear displaying the relevant image, and the main frame should be disabled while this pop-up frame is open. The main frame is disabled, therefore you can see test 15 as a success. Moving on to test 16, the same thing should occur but with a different image in the pop-up frame, which is a success. Moving on to test 17, when the user selects an image for the ball in the combo box. Let's select white. And then with test 18, the user changes the slider to their desired value of ball size. Therefore we will make quite a large ball for this test. Corresponding that with test 3, when the user clicks the start button and the back button, and all this in the top right should disappear. Extra statistics about the game should appear, score in time, the equation should appear, and obviously the game should appear as well. Therefore test 3 is a success. Now testing test 17 and test 18, the ball should be large and white. Therefore you can see that test 17 and test 18 are successful. Moving on to test 19, the user places the mouse on the screen in a desired location and clicks during the game. The ball should be released with a proportional velocity in both dimensions. Therefore, if I have quite a large x coordinate and a low y coordinate, the ball should have quite a large x velocity and a low y velocity. And the same if I invert it, which you can see is a success. Therefore test 19 is a success. Moving on to test 4, during the game the time should increment each second, as you can see is a success. Test 5, during the game a random equation should be displayed with a missing letter from the topic selected. This is a materials topic, therefore this is a success. Moving on to test 6, a letter is selected as an answer in the game. For the start of this test we will select the correct answer. In this case is E. My score should be increased, a new set of letters should appear, and a new equation should appear. As you can see is a success. Now for the second part of test 6, we will select an incorrect letter, and therefore my score should be decreased, a new equation should appear, and new letters should appear. So let's select S. I accidentally selected the correct answer, so in this case let's select Z. As you can see, my score was decreased and new letters appeared and a new equation appeared. Moving on to test 7, when the timer reaches 120 seconds the game should end. As you can see is successful. When the game ends, the game process is terminated and a finish button appears. As you can see is successful. Moving on to test 9, when the finish button is clicked, the user should be taken to the main menu, which is successful. Moving on to test 10, when the user achieves a high score in the game, we just achieved a high score of 11 as our high score previously was 0, as I explained. The record in the results table should be updated, so if we check that now, the record was updated, a new record has been created with the game score of 11. Moving on to test 11, when the user does not achieve a high score in the game, the record in the game results table shouldn't be updated. I have just played a game and achieved a score of 4 as a test. So when I click finish and are taken to the main menu, if I update this table, this record here should not be updated as I have not achieved a high score higher than 11. It has not been updated and therefore test 11 is a success. Moving on to test 20 for this section, in which I will be testing when the user achieves a new high score to unlock a new character in the Projectiles game. To show you, the account I'm logged on currently is Tester under account ID 2, and if I go into the game results table, the only game results stored for Projectiles is in the materials topic of score 11. If I now add some rows and high scores, as you can see I have added high scores for this account in all of the Projectiles games. If I now reload the application and log in under Tester, I should now have corresponding characters corresponding to the high scores that I've inputted into the game results. So if I now load Projectiles, Mechanics, I now have 1 character, Electric Circuits, I have 2 characters, Materials, I have 3 characters, and Waves, I have 5 characters, as Albert Einstein is unlocked as well as an extra. Now on to actually testing that these character images work for the Projectiles game. I'll be testing each character image with a varying size. So let's test the first character image with a large size. As you can see, that is a success. Testing the second character image with a medium size. As you can see, that is a success. Testing the third character image with a smaller size. successful. Testing the fourth character image with the largest size is a success. And testing the last character image with a smaller size is successful. Moving on to the 8th section of testing, which is testing the quiz screen. Before I do any testing, I would like to show you the quiz results table stored in the database. There are currently no records stored in this table, therefore there are no high scores for any account in any quiz. With this knowledge, let's move on to the testing. Test 1 states that when the quiz screen is initially displayed, the statistics should be displayed about the quiz selected. If we select quiz and the mechanics topic, you can see that this is a success. Moving on to test 2, the user selects the back button. The topic screen should be displayed. As you can see, this is a success. Moving back onto the quiz, test 3, the user clicks the start button. A question and all of its elements should be loaded. The back button and the start button should disappear, and new statistics should be displayed. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 4, during the quiz the time shown increments each second. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 5, the user selects a correct answer. The next question should be loaded and the score should be increased, and the correct tally should be increased. So the correct answer to this would be wait. As you can see, my score has been increased, my correct tally has been increased. Moving on to test 6, the user selects an incorrect answer. The incorrect tally should be increased, the score should be decreased, and the next question should be loaded. An incorrect answer to this would be this. As you can see, the score has been decreased, and an incorrect has been increased, and the next question has been loaded. Now moving on to test 7, when the timer hits 300, it should stop incrementing. The question should remain on this question until the user answers, and then once the user answers, the quiz should end. So if we answer just a random answer in this case, the quiz now has ended. Once the quiz ends, all the question elements should disappear and the finish button should disappear. So it should appear, and therefore you can see that question test 7 and test 8 are successful. When the finish button, test 9, when the finish button is clicked, the panel on frame should change from the quiz screen to the main menu screen. That is a success. Now relating back to test 8, the user's high score should be updated in the database if necessary. We achieved a high score there as we did not have one before. Therefore, our high score of 6 has been stored in the database successfully. Furthermore, for test 8, I have just finished a quiz. If we get this question correct, I have just finished a quiz on score 2 on the same topic. Therefore, if I finish, the record in the quiz results table should not be updated. As you can see, the record in the quiz results table has not been updated, and just showing you it's the same account that we were on previously. It is not been updated, therefore test 8 is a success. Moving on to the 9th section of testing, in which we will be testing the leaderboard screen. Before we test anything, I would like to show you the account table, the game results table, and the quiz results table. This is because I have altered the information in these tables to test the leaderboard screen with. I have added 20 test accounts. As you can see here on the account table, it goes up to test 20, and I've added a whole bunch of random scores in all the quiz and games. So with this information, let's carry on with testing the leaderboard screen. We log in with our account, go onto the leaderboard screen. The first test is when the leaderboard screen is initially displayed, an empty leaderboard table should appear. As you can see, it is a success. Moving on to test 2, user selects a type of quiz or game in the combo box labeled select, a topic in the combo box labeled topic, and clicks the show button, and a leaderboard table displaying corresponding information should be displayed. If we do quiz and mechanics, quiz and electric circuits, quiz and materials, and quiz and waves, and as you can see here in the quiz results table, all of that information is corresponding. Now moving on to the snake mechanics, snake electric circuits, snake materials, and snake waves, and projectiles mechanics, projectiles electric circuits, projectiles materials, and projectiles waves. If you want to have a look at the game results table, you can see that all that information is correctly corresponding. And therefore test 2 is a success. Moving on to test 3, when the leaderboard is displayed, the rows in the leaderboard should be ordered by high score of the topic selected by the user in descending order. As you can see, that did just occur that correctly, but if we just test it one more time, As you can see, mechanics is ordered correctly, snake, and if we wanted to order it by materials, you can see that it's being ordered correctly. Therefore, test 3 is a success. Moving on to test 4, user enters a string into the username field labeled find user and clicks the find button. If we type in test 8, it has been narrowed down correctly. If we test it again on another leaderboards table, if we wanted to find test 9, it has been narrowed down correctly. Therefore, test 4 is a success. Moving on to test 5, user clicks on the show button with a username entered into the find user field, and the normal leaderboard screen should be displayed. As you can see, that is a success. If we do it with another table, as you can see, that is a success. Therefore, test 5 is a success. Moving on to test 6, when the user clicks on a back button, the panel should change to the main menu, and the mute music thing checkbox should be ticked as it was when we came in. As you can see, that is a success. If we tick it, it is a success. And then moving on to merge sort testing, test 7, I have created an external class here, or an external project, sorry. I've copied over the merge sort class here, as you can see, and I'm calling it here from the main method to test that it works. And the test states that I pass the merge sort class an array of shuffled integers. As you can see here, these should be reordered into the correct order when passed to this class. If we run it, as you can see, that is a success. If we do it with another set of numbers just randomly entered here and run it, as you can see, they have been ordered correctly, and therefore test 7 is a success. Moving on to the 10th section of testing, in which we'll be testing the account screen. The first test states that when the account screen is initially displayed, the account's username, level, and progress bar should be displayed. We've logged in with the tester account, and therefore test 1 is a success. Moving on to test 2, the user selects a type of game or quiz in the combo box labeled select, a topic in the combo box labeled topic, and clicks the show button, and the corresponding statistics should be displayed. If we test this for each one, you can see that test 2 is a success. Now moving on to test 3, the user's high score scores change in the games, and they revisit the account page, and the progress bar and or level should have updated correctly. Now, instead of actually playing the games, I'm going to manually do it in the game results table. As you can see, our tester account is under account ID 2. So if I change the game ID, if I change the game results under the account ID 2, if I just change the manually here quite high, as you can see here, I have changed all of the game results quite highly, so now he has high scores. If I now reload the application, as you can see, this was our level before we reload it. If I now reload the application, log in with the same account, the level should have increased and the progress bar should have changed. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 4, the user clicks on the back button and should be taken to the main menu screen with the music checkbox ticked how it was. As you can see, that is a success. If I untick it and do it again, it remains unticked. Therefore, test 4 is a success. Now moving on to the 11th section of testing, which I'll be testing the admin screen. The first test states that when the admin screen is initially displayed, helpful information about inserting equations and questions should be displayed. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 2, the user clicks the insert game equation button. A pop-up frame should open with the game inserting panel. The main frame should be disabled while the pop-up frame is open. The main frame is clearly disabled. As you can see, test 2 is a success. Moving on to test 3, the user clicks the insert quiz question button. The same pop-up frame should open, but with the question inserting panel instead, and the main frame should still be disabled while this pop-up frame is open. As you can see, the main frame is now disabled and the panel is the question inserting panel. Therefore, test 3 is a success. Moving on to test 4, the user clicks the check student statistics button. A pop-up frame should open with the find student statistics panel. The main frame should be disabled while this pop-up frame is open. As you can see, it is the correct panel and the main frame is clearly disabled, and therefore test 4 is a success. Now test 5, the user clicks on the back button. The panel on frame should change from the admin screen to the main menu screen, and the mute music checkbox should remain as the option it was selected as before. We came in as it ticked, so when we go back it should be ticked. As you can see, if we untick it and go back, as you can see, test 5 is a success. Moving on to the insert game equation pop-up frame testing. The first test in this section, test 6, states that when the user enters nothing into the equation field and clicks insert, the corresponding error message should occur and nothing should be inserted. If I just click insert here, As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 7. When the user enters an equation which is less than 5 characters and clicks insert, the same error message should occur and nothing should be inserted. If I test this with 4 characters, 3 characters, 2 characters, and 1 character, as you can see, test 7 is a success. Moving on to test 8. The user enters an equation which is above 30 characters and clicks insert. The corresponding error message should occur and nothing should be inserted into the system. If I enter clearly over 30 characters here and click insert, as you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 9. When the user enters an equation which contains spaces and clicks insert, the corresponding error message should occur and nothing should be inserted into the system. If I just enter spaces into a string here, as you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 10. The user selects a topic, enters an equation which already exists in that topic file and clicks insert. The formula should not be inserted into the system as it already exists and the corresponding error message should occur. Now moving on to the materials topic, if I try and insert this equation here corresponding to this equation, it should not allow me. As you can see, that is unsuccessful. This is the equation that was actually inserted into the system, therefore proving the code must be flawed somewhere and that test 10 is unsuccessful. Now moving on to test 11, where the user enters a suitable equation, selects a topic and clicks insert, and the correct equation should be file written into the correct topic file with this message saying inserted should either appear or remain, and the formula being inserted should be correctly formatted once written into the file. Now if we just test this with an equation that looks like it could be an equation but isn't actually any equation stored, such as this, if we insert this into each topic file, and now we check the topic files, mechanics, as you can see down here, it has been inserted and correctly formatted. Electric circuits, the same. Materials, the same. And waves, the same. Therefore, test 11 is a success. Moving on to test 12, the user enters the characters up to as the squared symbol and selects the topic and clicks insert. Now when this happens, this equation should be inserted. However, this part of the equation should not be spaced, as this is recognized as the squared symbol. If I insert this into the mechanics, the electric circuits, the materials, and the waves topic files, if we open them now, as you can see here, it has been successfully formatted. This has not been spaced. With the waves the same, it has not been spaced. With the materials the same, it has not been spaced. And with the electric circuits the same, it has not been spaced. Therefore, test 12 is a success. Moving on to test 13. When the equation is inserted into the system, the formulas given on the formula pop-up frame should be updated with the new equations. Now if we go on to the formulas pop-up frame here and go on to each topic, as you can see, the formulas have been added to the pop-up frame. Therefore, test 13 is a success. Moving on to the insert quiz question pop-up frame testing, the first test in this section, test 14, states that if the user leaves any field empty apart from the image and clicks insert, the corresponding error message should occur and nothing should be inserted into the system. Now it says apart from the image here, as not all questions require an image and therefore the image field can be left blank if needed. Now testing this, if we leave every field empty and press insert, the correct error message pops up. If we just leave the answer fields empty and a correct question, pops up. If we leave the answer fields full and no question, it remains. As you can see, test 14 is a success. Moving on to test 15, the user enters 20 characters or under in the question field, inputs the rest of the data correctly and presses insert. The corresponding error message should stay or appear and nothing should be inserted. So if we just enter a few characters here into the question field and enter the correct length of each answer, as you can see, it remains. Therefore, test 15 is a success. Moving on to test 16, the user enters a string of 250 characters in the question field, inputs the rest of the data correctly and presses insert. So if we enter a ton of characters here into the question field, I've already entered the correct lengths for the answer field. The correct error message should occur when insert is clicked. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 17, the user enters a string of 10 characters in an answer field, inputs the rest of the data correctly and clicks insert. So if we enter characters over 10 here in an answer field and enter the correct length of a question roughly, now this should not allow us to because these are too long. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 18. The user enters an image which is not a JPEG or a PNG, and we should get an error message saying that this image cannot be inserted. So I have a test image lined up which is a GIF. If I go and select this GIF image, we should not be allowed to insert this as it is not a PNG or a JPEG. As you can see, test 18 is a success. Moving on to test 19. The user attempts to insert a question which is already stored under the same topic. For this, if we go to the questions table stored in the database and collect this question here, this question, as you can see, is from the mechanics topic. If I insert this question and some tester answers, as the answers aren't relevant, it's the question which is relevant, and try and insert this, we should not be allowed to insert this as it already exists in the database. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 20. User enters suitable information in every field and clicks insert, and the data should be successfully inserted into the database. Now I have a question lined up for this. I will just go ahead and transfer all of this information into this pop-up frame. As you can see, I have successfully transferred across all the information about the equation and the question into the pop-up frame, and it's under the electric circuits topic. Now I've already stored this image in my computer. Now if I put this image into the image field, it allows me to put it in, and the test states when I click insert, a message saying inserted should appear. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to test 21. When a question has been inserted into the database, when in the relevant topic quiz the question may appear, and if so, all the question elements should correctly appear, and if answered correctly, the score should be increased by the score entered. Now if we go into the questions table here and update it, this question has been correctly inserted with the new record, and as you can see, we've input a score of 2. Now if we go into the electric circuits quiz, as we input it in the electric circuits section and answer this correctly, we should gain a score of 2. The correct answer is a diode as I entered, and as you can see, my score is increased by 2. Therefore test 21 is a success. To complete further testing of test 21 in the admin screen testing section, I'm going to insert a question into each topic, except for the electric circuits topic, as this was already previously tested and deemed successful. I'm completing this further testing to show you that when a question is inserted into each topic, it is successfully shown in the quizzing section. With this information, I would like to show you the questions table stored in the database, and I have deleted every single record, every single question in this. Therefore, the questions table in the database is blank. Now I will fill up the pop-up frame with mechanics information. I have filled up the pop-up frame with the correct mechanics information for the mechanics question, test question. I will now insert this into the database, and now I will fill it for the materials topic. I have filled in the information, and I will now insert it for the materials topic. Now I will fill it for the waves topic. I have filled it for the waves topic, and I will now insert it for the waves topic. Now that all these questions have been inserted, looking at the questions table in the database, you can see that 3 questions have been added of each quiz ID that I added them for and the relevant scores. Now if we go into the testing section with this in mind, and we test the mechanics first of all, the correct question came up. I did not insert an image, therefore no image has been shown, and I gave this a score of, as you can see, 3. So if this is correctly answered, a score of 3 my score should be increased by 3. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to the materials, if I reload the application. So now if I go into a quiz for materials, you can see that the question I added for materials, the quiz ID of 3, has a score of 2. And as you can see, the question has been successfully shown, the answers have been successfully shown, and no image has been successfully shown. If I answer this correctly, my score should be increased by 2. As you can see, that is a success. If I now reload the application for the waves test, if I now load a waves quiz, as you can see, I inserted the question with a score of 1. If I now load this, the correct question has been shown, no image has been shown successfully, and all the correct answers have been shown. If I answer this correctly, my score should increase by 1. As you can see, that is a success. Therefore, this further testing is successful for test 21. Moving on to the check student statistics pop-up frame testing. The first test in this section, test 22, states that when an admin user enters nothing and clicks search, a corresponding error message should appear and no statistics should appear. So if I just click search, that is correct. The second test in this section, test 23, states that when an admin enters a username which doesn't exist in the system and clicks search, the same error message should appear. So if I just enter absolute rubbish into the field, the same error message appears. As you can see, that is a success. Moving on to the third test, test 24. When an admin enters a username of an account which exists in the system and clicks search, statistics corresponding to that account should appear. To do this, if I go onto the account table in the database, the game results table, and the quiz results table, and select an account at random, if I select test 6 of account ID 8, if I go on to account ID of 8, and see here, you can see the game results scores here, and if I go into the quiz results, you can see account ID 8, all of his scores here. So now if I search up the account ID of 8, which is test 6, if I search test 6, you can see that the statistics are displayed correctly, corresponding to what was stored in the database. Moving on to test 25, an admin enters a username in any type of casing and the statistics corresponding to that account should appear. So to do this, if I reload it, just to make sure the test is accurate, now I can enter this in any type of casing I want and the same statistics should appear. As you can see, that is a success. Let's just do it one more time. And that is a success. Therefore, test 25 is also a success. Now retesting test 10 in the admin screen testing section, which was unsuccessful, which states when a user selects a topic, enters an equation which already exists in that topic file and clicks insert, an error message should appear saying file already contains that equation and nothing should be inserted into the system. I have altered the code and now it should be a successful test. I will be testing 3 formulas from each topic file, starting with the first topic file of mechanics. Let's test 3 random equations. How about F equals MA? That is a success. The second equation, success. The third equation, success. Moving on to the electric circuits topic. The first equation, success. The second equation, success. The third equation, success. Moving on to the materials topic. The first equation, which failed last time, success. The second equation, success. And the third equation, success. Moving on to the waves topic. The first equation, success. The second equation, success. And the third equation, success. Therefore, test 10 is now successful.